Hello. Today we're going to be talking about the stored energy lab, or releasing the chemical energy from a Cheeto. Actually, today we have cheese balls, but um, I'll probably be calling them Cheetos and cheese puffs throughout. So we're going to be doing a really cool lab today where we light cheese puffs or cheese balls and marshmallows on fire to release the chemical energy. And then we're going to measure the amount of energy released by both the marshmallow and the cheese ball and determine which one has more energy. But before we do this, let's talk a little bit about our food and what we find in it. So when we eat food, we get two things from it: energy and nutrients. Nutrients are the materials, the things that we're made up of, the things that you can touch. Those are the elements. And energy is the ability to do work. So let's first talk about materials or elements or nutrients. Materials are made of elements, and when the Earth was made, it was made through a process called accretion. So floating in space, we had all of these elements. So let's call this a carbon and a nitrogen and a carbon and an oxygen and probably just a lot of hydrogen here. And because of gravity, all of these elements are attracted to one another, and they come together and they form a ball. And over time, that ball gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And it becomes planetesimals and planetoids and then a planet. And so that planet is formed from gravity pulling all of these elements together. So why do I tell you this? Well, because all of these pieces that we have on Earth is all of these pieces that we have on Earth. We don't have any more pieces. So all of the carbon that we have on Earth is all of the carbon. Let's say we have, this is a really weird way of saying it, but let's just say we have 7 million pieces of carbon, or 7 million carbon atoms, which we have a lot more. But no matter how we break it down or put it back together, we will only have 7 million pieces of or carbon atoms. And so what I'm trying to tell you is the law of conservation of matter states that matter cannot be created or destroyed. So all of the elements that we have on Earth are all of the elements that we have on Earth. New elements are not created, and they're not destroyed. They don't just disappear. And so if we look at this candle and a flame and we see that there's smoke up here, where is this smoke coming from? Did it just appear? Did it come from nowhere? No, we just said that it had to come from somewhere. What happened was it just took on a different form. Smoke is made mostly of carbon. I have the carbon here represented by little C's, and you can see that the C's are bonded together with little lines. So those little lines are what hold those C's or stick them together. And when we light a candle on fire, what we are doing is we are breaking these little bonds. And so those carbons are free. They're free from all of the other carbons. And what they do is so this is our before and here's our after, is they attach onto oxygen that's floating in the atmosphere, and they make carbon dioxide. And so when we light a candle, we release this carbon and we create smoke and we create carbon dioxide. And so at no point did anything just appear or disappear. What happened is that bonds were broken and some bonds were made. So this was broken down into smaller pieces. And so this is when we say that matter is recycled. It is used again and again and again. It never is created, it never is destroyed. It just takes on different forms. Some bonds are broken, some bonds are made. If we look at sodium and we look at chlorine, these are two substances that you definitely wouldn't eat. This is a metal and this is a toxic gaseous substance. But when you put them together, when you allow them to bond together, when you make Na, so sodium is Na, that's the symbol for it, and chlorine is Cl, that's the symbol for it, so NaCl. When you put these together, they make table salt, or NaCl. Here's the Na, here's the Cl, and when you put them together, you get NaCl. And table salt is not toxic. So what we did is we just bonded them together. We took an Na and we bonded it to a Cl and made salt. At no point was anything created or destroyed. It just took on a new form. And so this is what I mean when matter is recycled over and over again. So the energy that is contained in the candle is found between the elements. So we've been talking about the elements, the carbons, the oxygens. But now let's talk about the energy, the ability to do work, the ability to make heat or light. And that's found right here in these little lines. These lines are the bonds, and it's what stick the carbons together. And so this is where energy is stored. Energy is stored in the bonds. Energy is released from a substance when the bond is broken. So here, the energy that is stored in this candle, in this wick, it looks like this, carbon, 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 just all of these carbons together. When we light it on fire, we are releasing the energy in this wick, and it is being released as light energy and as heat energy. And so here, we're doing a very similar thing when we eat food. We are breaking the food down. We are making it smaller, and you can feel the heat being released. And that energy we are getting from our food is breaking down, and it is giving us the ability to move or to think or to provide us with heat. And so it's very similar to this candle burning. So energy is converted from one form to another. So some examples of this: chemical energy in our food becomes kinetic energy in our body. So we eat food, and it allows us to move. I can move my hand, and this is from the food that I've eaten. Another example of this is kinetic energy from a wind turbine. So if the wind is blowing and it blows this turbine, we then convert that into electric energy. Another example is chemical energy is converted into light and heat. So the chemical energy in this candle is going to be converted into light and heat, which is the flame. So we have two things happening here in this candle. We have energy conversion, so the energy is being converted from chemical energy to light and heat, and we are also changing the form of the matter. The matter is going from that carbon, carbon, carbon into carbon dioxide, into smoke. So energy, this is cool. So the energy that comes from that we get in our food comes from the sun originally. It starts out as light energy from the sun. And during the process of photosynthesis, so the sunlight travels 93 million miles to Earth, and then plants can trap the bonds in a sugar called glucose. This is the process of photosynthesis. And so when we eat those plants and we get that sugar, so here the sunlight is shining down on the plant, that light energy is trapped in our glucose, in our sugar, and then we eat that sugar, or we eat that plant. We eat carrots, we eat celery, we eat corn. All of that gives us energy, and that energy comes from the sun. So everything that makes you alive and to be able to think and move, that energy comes from the sun, which is really cool. So the difference between matter and energy is that matter is recycled over and over again. It takes on new forms, but it never breaks down. It just changes its composition. Sometimes it's just carbon, and sometimes it's attached to oxygens and it becomes carbon dioxide. However, energy is converted from one form to another. So you've got light energy from the sun converted into chemical energy in plants, and then we eat it and we convert it into kinetic energy that helps us move. However, it eventually breaks down and floats off into space. So we are emitting heat from our bodies, and it is degraded, it is broken down. It doesn't disappear, it just sort of floats off into space. So remember, it does not disappear, it is not destroyed. It breaks down, becomes less organized, and it just floats off into space. Matter is recycled over and over and over again. It never degrades. Energy is converted from one form to another. However, it breaks down, it becomes less organized, and floats off into space. So, why do I tell you all of this? Well, in this lab, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be determining if there's more energy in the marshmallow or in the cheese ball. So in marshmallows, these are carbohydrates. It's sugar, the glucose that we were talking about. And we're going to represent that with this molecule right here. This is a glucose molecule. Cheese puffs have cheese. They have lipids. And so here, this is the molecule. This is a lipid molecule. And we're going to be lighting these on fire. We're going to be releasing the energy from these two types of food. And we're going to be measuring. So I'm going to put some water in this beaker. I'm going to light the food under here. And the energy, the heat energy from this marshmallow is going to heat up some water here. And we're going to use a thermometer to measure how much energy was captured, how much heat energy was captured by the water. And so we're going to compare the two, marshmallows and cheese balls. Which one is going to be able to heat the water up more? Because which one is going to have more energy? Which do you think is going to have more energy? Remember that energy is stored in bonds, and we're going to, so there's lots and lots of bonds here, and there are some bonds, but not quite as many here. And so when we break these bonds down, it's going to release energy. Which food do you think is going to have more energy? Or which one do you think is going to give off more light and heat and raise the temperature of the water more? Think about that, and then we will work on this lab together. And I will see you in class.